watch new Survivor. We're stuck in a bad dream. So we're watching an old season with a silly pirate theme. Of course there's a new theme song, but it's as half-assed as our plans. And then something, mumbo something, a word that rhymes with plans. John will make some dumb jokes. Andy likes to yell and curse. Something about some backup host. How could hell be any worse? We'll spend the whole time wishing that our lives were back on track. But until then, it's Pirate Survivor. We can all be glad for that. It's the Purple Rock Whatever Podcast, our mateys.
Hello and welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast. We are here to discuss the finale of Pro Islands. We got here, we survived, the year got through, we got through a season of Survivor. Don't know when there'll be another one, but for now, I'm here to talk with Matt and Emma about the finale, about the season as a whole, about our lives.
Hopefully not that part.
I mean, there's the thing we've done every week for the past, 13. It's kind of a bit about our lives.
A little soft,
Emma.
really?
And off the rails already.
Thank you. This is what you came for. This is what it's all about. This is live, recorded. Emma, what did you think of the finale?
Yeah, I mean, there are fun moments, but I think this is definitely true of most older seasons. It's just like the finale, there's just not as much to have happen.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that. One thing I've wondered is it that finales themselves are so driven by outcome? It's generally propelled by, this is what the season's been all about. Let's find out what's going to happen. And of course, on a rewatch, you know what's going to happen. And there isn't like a lot of the other flavor that would fill in an episode that we would be, it'll be so great to see that again. It'll be like, okay, well, now the thing we've known all season. Because obviously, like, we know the outcome of most of these episodes, but there's like moments to look forward to. And I wonder if finales tend to strip out a lot of those moments in favor of who's going to win, leaving it on a rewatch not very interesting. Or Matt, is it the issue that the modern ones are just more interesting than the older ones?
I don't think that modern ones are necessarily more interesting, but they have more going on in them. So there's less kind of like dead time. By this point in the season, we know these people. We don't need to spend these like quiet moments with them. They don't really add to our understanding of them. And in this older finale, there's a lot of those like quieter moments. There's a lot of just not much happening. Like, they've gotten rid of the, fallen comrades bits. Though this is one of the better ones because they light a freaking ship on fire, which is cool.
And it's always funny, the moralizing of like, we will not be burning Austin, for his torch shall lay in shame.
Right.
He's the survivor. Good thing he quit. All these other ones are symbolically being immolated, but you did the right thing, Austin. You knew to get out.
But modern ones, it's not that what happens in them is more interesting. It's just that there's more that happens. And so there's just less dead time. Like this felt very long. It's no longer than any other finale, but it felt very long.
Yeah, so this is the third season I've rewatched over the past, I don't know, like half year or so. And they're all older though. Like this is the most modern of those three. And yeah, just like all of them has just kind of been like, cool, like that happened. Now, like maybe these were just three that were less interesting than others. Like Australia was famously boring in that like there's just three people. They dedicate like 15 to 20 minutes to an arts and crafts segments. Like it is tough stuff. Africa, I mean, all over is kind of just boring stuff. So it's possible that like just as a sampling, it's not fair in that respect to judge old ones. And like I said, maybe it's that like, because I didn't feel like they were necessarily boring at the time because I was invested in who's going to win. We can't fake that investment now. We know who's going to win. It's not even like, let's see how it happens. We've seen it. So it's not like, some people who watch Survivor season spoiled. And yeah, like to your point, we know them. It would be weird if we were learning key details about them this late in the season, right? Like,
Right.
there might be like something comes up in like a different situation that'll be like that could reveal something. But if they're waiting until the finale to be like, all right, well now you'll finally get to know Darrah, that would be like weird placement, right? And then the other thing I think happens, and it's modern now, but I think probably throughout, rarely do the people who get to the very end are people that necessarily have like a great story and connection. Sometimes that happens. Australia, obviously, it was those three all the way through. Did not help. Like Ghost Island, but for the most part, it's kind of like these are the people who are left. Like, what kind of interesting connections could there possibly be between Sandra, Darrah, John, and Lil? Like Sandra and John a bit, but it's just kind of like the more like a lot of connections tend to get broken at this point, and a lot of times like the people that are left over, it's like a couple of challengers and some flotsam. And it's weird actually, that's even still true in season 7 when people weren't necessarily goat herding as much, except that like all 4 of these on some level are a bit of goaty. So yeah, like it's not a boring finale. It's so much more interesting than those other 2 I just realized. But yeah, and maybe it's just like the hour and a half versus 42 minutes of it. Maybe it's because we know that final tribal council is always so inconsequential, but I think I just wonder if it's when stripped from the wonder, the worry of who's going to win, there isn't much else other than can we get to the fireworks factory at all? And this one specifically, the challenges did not add a great dimension of excitement.
No. I mean, those were bad challenges, especially the first one. I know we have that later, but do you just want to talk about it now? Like,
I didn't even mean to bring it up because we have it later. That one has a specific flaw, but like frankly, this is what they'd been doing a lot at this point and I think maybe a nod to how physically spent the competitors were. But in the finale or near the finale, there's a trivia type challenge at Tribal Council. This time they go into extra step, and we'll get to that in a second. But in the past it was like the Fallen Comrades segment where you like talk about the people who are voted out, which famously screws Lex possibly out of $1 million.
Which is probably why they didn't do it that way.
Yeah, they maybe found a different way around it, but it's still trivia, which also was the tiebreaker in Africa, was actually just survivalist trivia.
Yeah, that's like what happened if there aren't previous votes, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. First it was previous votes, and then they went to this. That's how
I
olds
think
lost to the youngs.
So I know you're like, so if everyone either it's tied or like it's for Africa it'd be in the very beginning, right? So they just didn't have.
So how it plays out before we even get to the weird way of this specific one is we're sitting and watching people sit and like write things down. So not exactly a dynamic type environment. And then the final challenge, which at this point in Survivor history was still very much like the endurance. How long can you do this uncomfortable thing? And I know that like that has a lot of fans. And it has led to some epic moments in Survivor, but in practicality, it's also just watching people, stand for a long time.
Well, and the thing is, I do want to say, like, as far as stamina challenges, this is one of the best. This is the most entertaining.
This has some of the best moments of the finale.
Yeah. In fact, I would say those are the best moments of the finale.
But just in like diagnosing how like in retrospect and rewatch these old finales don't have as much punch. It's like we're watching people write like words on a parchment, and we're watching them stand until they can't anymore. And obviously like a later season will like destroy the concept of endurance challenges when 2 guys basically break it. But I think in general, just kind of thinking back, like it works when you're watching it the first time because you need to know who's going to win. But what that tends to happen is one person leaves early. How early it is in reflection, but it's a lot earlier than the other 2. And then we just sit around waiting for somebody else to, give up or fall. And I agree. Like this one at least had like the back and forth between John and Lil to keep it up. But there isn't like, I think endurance challenges in general work better when there are more parties because that gives you more staged intervals of action.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, it's kind of like, all right, a good 20 minutes is watching people stand.
I mean,
But I do think you do kind of see it as almost even though you technically can keep playing, once someone wins, it's kind of this last ditch effort of like strategy and negotiating, because this is far from the only endurance challenge that leads to the last two people, someone in the last two trying to make a deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I was going to bring up was that the trivia challenge. That's another challenge that I think is fine earlier, especially as like a reward challenge. That makes sense as a reward challenge. It's like, oh, do you know stuff about this? You get a reward for knowing that stuff that you then get to like partake in this culture that you're in.
And then they went the crazy way. Like, what the hell? Competing against the jury? What is that?
Yeah, that is terrible.
Thank God it appears that without the jury, if I remember and had the math right, that Jonny Fairplay would have won. Because like if Darrah would have won, like
the season.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that would have.
I mean, I don't know if she could beat Lil at that final challenge, though. Lil, she does.
she does
aerobics.
She does aerobics. This is a squats, John.
But like, yeah, I mean, when you talk about Lex, and that's a more really blatant thing because they just did it wrong. But like, if this was a situation where if they didn't have the jury playing, she would have won in an instance where she got voted out. That would be pretty shitty.
Yeah.
Luckily it appears she would have been voted out anyway.
Had John's lead held, nothing really changes. Nobody was voting him out either way. So him having immunity and not having immunity, I don't think it changes the outcome of this season because it's just dumb for two reasons. One, it's unfair. A lot of minds can come up with an answer more easily than one mind.
Yep.
Depending on the collection of minds, I suppose. Yeah.
Also, they're fed and rested. Like,
that's honestly probably even the bigger thing.
And then the other part is there's no stakes for them.
Yeah.
If they lose, it's like whatever. It was just a fun little night. Like, like what are they?
At least the Outcast, they were fighting for something.
Yeah.
Right.
This is just like spite.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna keep it away from somebody.
Thing, to be sure.
I mean, that jury did seem like they wanted to spite someone. They were very happy.
All juries want to spite someone.
That's true. That is the primary
for the crime of them still being on television and us not. Like
that's true.
The narrative forcing to be about somebody other than themselves, which for many of them is the first time in their lives. So no, it's just like I'm pretty confident because frankly I'd forgotten that this has happened. This is the only time they do it, and never again. It's a bad idea. I almost wonder if it was, probably not, right? But like if you want to think conspiracy theory, if this was like the producers being like, we got to make sure Darrah doesn't win. So what can we do? If like looking around that competition, right? It's like this. It's Darrah who isn't like impressively winning champion immunities. It's just kind of random things. One, they thought she had lost before somebody checked the French.
I do love Darrah tried, like she doesn't actually shade the other people, but when she's like, I don't know if you're saying that I'm a physical threat.
I'm 60 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah. But I mean, come on. Like those other three.
Against those
look
three.
At the options.
Yeah. No, it was pretty funny, her going off. But she totally blew it. Like they checked in just long enough with Darrah this episode to show like, oh yeah, no, she stinks at this game. And then they're off her again.
It was very funny seeing Mr. Emma turn on her so quickly. I mean, he went from like having no opinion on Darrah to being like, Sandra, you better flip on her. If you don't, I swear to God. Like, come on, you have it. You can do it. Like, oh. And then like when she gets voted out, just like, oh, terrible play, Darrah. Like, such active speaking, which was delightful. I was like, you're gonna watch more.
Yeah, no, I mean, she was terrible in like her final segment as an active player, and then in the jury, just also as flat and boring. In the reunion, when they have her talk, the same deal, which kind of like harkens quickly back to like point Emma made is like one of the reasons you might not want to make somebody as invisible as Darrah, who's going into the finale, is that it removes the potential from the viewer's mind that this person is a potential winner. And this is the argument that some people have made in future seasons. That's like you shouldn't give such low edits to people, even if they're boring, because it sucks away some of the potential interest in the show. And I would say, what we saw of Darrah in this episode throughout, from the jury and even the reunion, is that no, you can't make a boring person more interesting by giving them more time. Cutting them out of the show as much as possible is actually the best you can do, because it's like a show does not become more interesting when you give more time to boring people, Emma.
The problem is when you then do suddenly give time to a boring person, people who pay attention to such things realize that person's definitely winning. It's so obvious because, God, why would they give her so much content?
That is the potential flaw, I suppose. And maybe even one of those, a season like that, what they should really do is balance the edit a bit more. And also abandon the idea of a winner's edit. If your winner's boring, they don't need to be in it that much. Just be like, hey,
they could just Chris Underwood their way into
the winner
the end,
was absent for most of it. It still functioned. But yeah, I was just like, yeah. So I will say, like, my wife, when she would find, like, when Darrah says something in reunion, it's like, God, she's so boring. It was just like, yeah, this is it. Like, everybody was like, why is there not more Chelsea? It's like, I promise you do not need confirmation that somebody is boring. It's not going to make a television show more interesting by giving these people time.
Is that the meanest thing she's ever said about anyone?
What's that?
I just can't imagine your wife insulting people. Is that the meanest thing she's ever said?
No, but I can't tell you because maybe it was about somebody in this conversation. No, that's not true.
Wow, I can't believe she just Matt like that.
I know. Well, I mean, that's why I didn't want to say anything. Actually,
she loves me.
It's actually great whenever she does do a little bit of that, because it doesn't take much to make her feel guilty about saying something bad about people. I'm like straight up, she'd be like, she sometimes sees or hears some of the way we interact, and then she's like, have you apologized to so and so yet? I'm like, what the hell for? Like, you guys seem like you were really snippy with each other.
What?
And I'm like, no, that's just how we talk. Doesn't get it, because she's a good person and we're not. Getting back to somebody who is a good person, or maybe not. Part of why Darrah's play was so bad is like, no one will give Lil a final 2 deal. All Lil is saying is, hey, maybe we should go to the end. And Darrah can't even pretend. She's like, wow, why would we talk about that? It's not even there yet. It's not that hard. Just say yes.
Everyone, I mean, like, this was what sunk Burton down the stretch. He was so worried about just saying yes to something that his inactivity sent him home. But same thing happened to Darrah. Like, just say yes. Come on, people.
Yeah,
like sure, like a non-committal yes, but she's just like will not like even entertain the idea at all of humoring Lil in this moment.
It's also especially hilarious at like Final Four to be like, oh, it's too soon to think that far ahead, and especially when she kept saying like, well, and I don't even know if I'll be there. It's like, if you're gonna give that kind of bullshit, say like, I don't know who's going. Oh, I don't know if I'll win a meet. Like, I might not be the one to make the choice. Maybe someone else wins a meet, or something like that. But they'll be like, well, I don't know if I'll be in the final 3, so why would I make a final 2 deal?
This is the point. This is what we're doing right now. Is trying to make a decision to get you to the final 3. That's what this is about. That's what we're doing here.
Yep.
Yeah. So my theory on why people wouldn't make a final 2 deal with Lil, it's like a little bit of that they all seem to have the wrong read and thinking that Lil would beat them. That's definitely part of it. But I think it's also because they think Lil would win in a jury, they also don't want to be like the evil person who sent Lil home and even worse, betrayed her, because then you have Lil in Ponderosa and like, I can't believe Darrah said it's go to the final 2 with me and then she voted me out. And like,
I mean,
then your game's over.
But here's the thing, Darrah, like, Lil voted Burton out because she didn't want you to get voted out at Final 5.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's what I think they were thinking.
No, I agree. I think the other thing was they probably wanted to vote Lil out originally. Like, that was what they were thinking. They're like, well, I can't promise you that because we're going to vote you out. So
I mean, clearly that's what Darrah's hoping for, because it's either her or Lil, it seems like, right? So she is saying, I'm not the dangerous one, Lil is. Yeah, sure. But don't say it to Lil. Just be like, yeah, sure, no, Sandra, just like we'd always planned. Like, it's not that hard.
Or John.
You're not lying that long.
Right.
And John, like, I think was there for this conversation, so I don't think you could throw him under the bus. But it's just,
you could throw John under the bus.
It is funny that they had been like in an alliance with Jonny Fairplay this whole time, and like they don't even consider not just actually voting for Sandra, but like saying that, like that's not even their decoy.
No.
Yeah. And
nobody's worried about Sandra.
Didn't get a single vote till the end. No, it is just, it's terrible. And I do think Emma's right that they don't want to become the new Andrew Savage, the person that may or may not have told Lil that she was going, the trail that would come. But it's weird. It's that, that everybody was afraid of her. It was, then, and they all wanted to vote her out because she was the big threat. She gets to the end and, is not. She loses 6-1. It is not close. And you almost get the sense that Tawana's vote was a pity vote. Why? Like throughout this episode, throughout the entire second half of the season, they're discussing, both to each other and to us that, Lil is the most dangerous jury threat. And then we get there, not so much. Matt?
So, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but there's like the abstract version of what someone is. Like you think about their resume without thinking about their qualities. You think about like, oh, well, she's in the Boy Scouts and she has kids and, like their life story on paper is more compelling than their personality is. And the thing that Lil runs up against is the fact that when you abstract Lil's life, it's very compelling. You see why you see why people would vote for her. And then you talk to Lil and you're like, my God, you're so annoying. I can't deal with you. I'm not going to vote for you. Now, that being said, I do think Lil was a threat to certain people in that final four, namely John. I don't know how that would arise. But people liked Sandra. Even the people that didn't like Sandra kind of liked Sandra. And so when forced to choose between someone who they don't like, but maybe has a sadder story, and someone who they do like, but doesn't have as sad a story, they're going to vote for the person they like.
Yeah.
It's also funny
I do
because
wonder. No, you go. Sorry.
Sandra, it's funny because Sandra is almost like the reverse of that too. It's like they like her, but it's also like they're like, oh, she's brash and she yells at people and she swears a lot. But then if you break it down abstract, it's like she's also a mom and oh, she's a military wife. And I don't think she shared that she was a veteran herself, but even still, that's almost more so because you can be like, assume, she's at home with the kids when her husband's deployed, which obviously wasn't the case for this season, but has been the case for other seasons for her. So it's certainly a part of her life. And like, so, we didn't see this in tribal council, but it's certainly something I'm sure people like knew as well. But because of her personality, you like aren't seeing her as a threat because she's yelling motherfucker at everyone. Which
and I wonder if it's a case
to
where
be clear.
Everybody just is profiling Lil. This is the type of person that has been talked about for 7 seasons now as a potential threat to the jury. She will get sympathy, and nobody while on the island had the courage to just kind of talk to somebody about how much they just actually don't like Lil. And then they get to the jury house and then something, just maybe it's a little slide remark or something, like maybe when they're traveling back from a tribal council and she'd done another whining bit and somebody maybe mockingly said something, and it's just like, oh, thank God someone said it. Like it's just the woman in your office, or the person, it doesn't have to be a woman, that you're supposed, I said woman because she is, that you're supposed to like. They're supposed to be such a nice person, sympathetic, but they're annoying as hell. And it's just like, when they finally get together, the jury, and the liquor is flowing, everybody's like, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Like, we're supposed to like her, but we can't stand her.
Honestly, the joy when you realize someone hates someone you also hate.
It's the best.
My drug of choice.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to bring up about Lil and her jury threat is I don't think what dooms Lil is the same thing that dooms, say, Dawn in a future season. I think that's a very different thing, even though I think they can be confused because there are like certain similarities there. But I think like Dawn is different because Dawn got backlash from using emotional bonds to then vote people out. And people take that very personally.
Mhm.
I don't think Lil was using emotional bonds to vote people out. She was just
I don't
like,
think she really had many,
right.
honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's why they're very different. Like,
Mhm.
people felt used by Dawn, manipulated by Dawn's kind of like persona and the way she used like the friendships that she made and the emotional bonds that she made. That's not what people feel with Lil.
Yeah. And then the other thing to mention is like everybody's talking about how she's like just dangerous person to go against the jury, but they never actually vote her out, right? So like it's
Yeah.
one of those things where you bring it up, maybe you're bringing up different things about why you would vote certain different people out, but it never rose to the level of, well, I guess we should do something about it, right?
Well, and the other thing is with this final four, this is not a murderer's row of like someone's gonna run away with it here. So if you're trying to throw someone under the bus to move a target off of you, why not talk up Lil? Like, oh well, she's so nice. Of course she'd be a threat because like no one else is obviously more of a threat out there. Like
Yeah.
no one know like, people don't consider Sandra a threat, people don't consider John a threat, with a jury. Like yeah, as I said, like this is not the murderer's row of like, oh, there's a clear front runner here.
Mhm. Now that would works better when they're talking to each other, when they're like strategizing over who to keep or why not. But they say it also in confessionals. They say
That's
it when
true.
voting, so that at least betrays the idea that they believe it to some degree. And to your other point, maybe Lil beats John, maybe Lil beats Darrah, maybe Lil beats Burton. I don't think so, but maybe it's just that everybody likes Sandra more and respected her game more. So maybe she genuinely was a threat to everybody except for Sandra. That's a possibility. I'm not sure, just because that jury seemed to have a lot of invective against Lil.
Yeah.
That did not suggest that it's like, oh man, I love you both, but I gotta just give my vote to Sandra. It felt like they were out there to take their pound of flesh, because how dare she do these things while living the Boy Scout mantra? We were Boy Scouts. How could she do this? This is not Boy Scout behavior. Was that bullshit? Just all bullshit the way that they were acting about her wearing the Boy Scout uniform? Emma?
Yes.
To be clear, are you asking, is it bullshit in the sense that like were they making that up? They didn't actually care, or is the concept bullshit?
The concept of holding her to a higher standard because of the costume they had her wear.
Yeah, no, that was stupid.
Yeah. And John or Probst calls that out at the reunion. The one thing I'll say is the
Yeah,
way
you know what? I did like that Probst called that out.
Yeah,
I feel
like, what the hell?
I feel like that early on in the series it actually kind of surprised me to hear that from him, because this is like now you'd expect it because that's anti-big moves and that sort of thing. But it's like, that Probst was definitely like, what the fuck, guys?
Yeah. Now it's possible she complained a lot to them for forcing her into this.
So he's trying to soften that liability.
Like she had never. I mean, and not even just like oh man, I feel a little bad, so I'll at least stand up for you in this sense, and maybe feeling some level of responsibility in the backlash that she probably received from people that weren't playing the game but just out there in the world. Now the one thing I'll say, maybe that would at least justify this attitude that the jurors had before that. Largely it's also just another way of punishing a woman for daring to play Survivor and beat them at it, but is that maybe she was often on the island espousing Boy Scout ideals and all of that when it suited her, right? So it's like, oh well, we shouldn't do that, the Boy Scouts wouldn't do this, it's totally unfair to vote
Darrah,
boring girl. I literally forgot her name. Darrah instead of Sandra. The voice, I made a promise, and then turn around and go ahead and do it when it's not convenient. If that was happening, if she was like using this as her shield, as her way of appearing holier than thou to people, then I would get them being like, what the fuck, Lil? Like,
that would be. I really hate sanctimony.
I think we saw a little bit of that in the pre-merge. Like, I feel like I remember something like that happening, like not to that degree, but like her talking about like a little bit more about the Boy Scouts when, it was the pre-merge. But I don't remember it in the post-merge, not on camera at least.
So in that respect, it would be like somebody, talking about their Christianity and how important it is. And then playing Survivor the way you need to play Survivor.
Or the warrior way.
Exactly, or a combination of the two.
Yeah,
so in that
that would
sense,
come later.
then their ranker at the jury would make a little bit more sense. Because, in fact, I would support it, but I would hope they would describe it better. So that's enough about Lil until I guess, or at least for a bit, we have a little bit more later. But Sandra wins.
Yay!
Sandra, one of my absolute favorite, characters in Survivor in the history of this show, and she was a delight through this episode as well. I loved her at Final Tribal Council.
Yeah, she was a lot of fun. Mr. Emma was delighted. Even before, he's like, okay, are you ready to watch the finale? He's like, yeah. And I was like, hey, so who do you think? He's, I think my girl Sandra. I was like, you're invested enough to my girl Sandra. So that was cool. Plus, it shows, the attachment, and I don't know if it's just like that's who you attach to early on, if there's like a representation thing, which we talk about being so important too. Did you know Sandra is only I don't know if it's just women or in general, but at the very least was only the second Latina on Survivor.
Wow.
That would be after Jesse and
Jesse Camacho. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know. I don't remember those older seasons enough to know if there's like any men I don't know of. So I might be forgetting somebody, but it's possible in general, not even just women.
Huh.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. At least running the first three, Thailand is obviously a complete blank to Matt.
Yeah, and who the fuck's in Thailand?
I can't. Nobody leaps to mind. On Amazon.
Right? Isn't that wild? But yeah, she's just so fun. I did think she had. You talked about Tijuana's vote maybe being a pity vote. I think she had I don't know if this is just how much the modern game has changed, but I think her answer to Tijuana's question was awful.
I honestly don't even recall it.
So Tijuana's like, why, it's the kind of very classic question of like, why should the person next to you not win? Like, why, and stuff. And Sandra's answer was, Lil voted all of you out.
Yeah, which would be a great reason, especially in modern, be like, this is why this person should be voted for.
And that's actually what T said was her reason. She's like, you know what? I thought, she had, that's playing the game. She had a hand in everything, and that was good. And it's like the thing is, the first answer that would come to mind for me is something you couldn't do on Edge of Extinction, but could do on Outcast, because it would only alienate one person, saying she got voted out. And it only alienates Burton. But the thing is, that would only, like, if you lose Burton's vote, that's the same amount as losing Tijuana's vote there anyway. So it doesn't really matter. But it's just, it strikes me every time, like, when, the other time when I rewatched this maybe 7-8 years ago, even then I was just like, oh, like, should Lil have won? Like, it's such a bad answer that it makes me wonder, like, in that brief moment, like, Lil did vote everyone out. That should be a positive. Should Lil have what?
Yeah,
like
but in Sandra's defense, I don't know that it was back then. It certainly doesn't help the very next season, right? So
the thing is, the only people she didn't vote out were Rupert and Krista. So it's not like she's like the Danny boat, right? Like underdog or that sort of thing, who was like climbing her way. It's just she got blindsided when they voted out her allies. Ooh, good job.
Yeah, to give Lil some credit, which we have not been doing, but she, like, I think Lil played a decent strategic game, better than I remembered, at least. Like, not good, but I remember Lil being completely dragged along, and I think she was more involved, especially towards the end, than I remembered her being. Like, voting for Burton was her idea. I did not remember that being her idea. I thought that was Sandra's idea. She's the one who turned the table on Darrah when, she's like, Darrah, you can make a deal with me. Darrah's like, no. Lil's like, okay, let's vote out Darrah. Like, Lil is like pretty active in like these two very consequential votes. I don't think she was a complete nothing in the game like I remembered her. Now, her personality is just as annoying as I remembered.
Her social game is god-awful.
It's really bad. But then again, the final challenge is just as delightful, where she's talking about that she does aerobics, and John's pleading.
My daughter wants to be a doctor.
Right, and John's pleading with her to understand what a deal is, and she refuses to consider it. Like, that part is fantastic.
It's funny, but she's absolutely right to not negotiate with
Oh,
John.
Yeah,
100%.
it's like
Any
like-
agreement he makes is not worth the paper it's printed on.
Nope.
And
Yeah.
you don't need to, she can just beat him.
He has no leverage.
None.
There's
He
no
admits like
leverage.
5 seconds in, he's like, I'm in pain. And she's like,
Right.
I'm not.
If you're saying, if as soon as Sandra drops and you're like, let's make a deal, it's so clear that means he's very like that he's
Yeah.
really struggling. Which
Yeah.
and if you're not, there's no leverage. And so like when
No.
he's like, do you understand what a deal is? I'm like, I'm sure she does. She just doesn't fucking need it.
Yeah. Well, and what deal would be good for her? It would only work is if she doesn't think she can win, and thus, she's then believing the biggest liar in the game will bring her. If it's I'll step down and let you win, Lil. Cool. I'll make my decision either way. It's not like she's got a great motivation that she needs to take John out of the game. She doesn't.
Right.
And we'll discuss whether she should have. So yeah, I mean, there's no purpose of the deal, but it is kind of funny to just like see her and John react to being stonewalled throughout.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. This was actually supposed to be the
Sorry about Sandra. Yeah.
portion. Not the
We just can't get enough of
does
Lil.
Lil suck portion, which we haven't even got to yet.
Yeah. Okay. So Sandra is great. Sandra is super entertaining, and she's great in this episode. Like, a lot of the best moments in this episode are the Sandra moments, with the exception of the one we just talked about between Lil and John. And frankly, she positioned herself very well, right up until and she got through because again, like she had a better social game with Lil. Now, you can argue about whether or not Lil should have taken her, but we've seen people take people they shouldn't have taken before in this situation, and we will afterwards. And they do that because guess what? They played a pretty good game to get that person to take them there.
Yeah. What's great about Sandra is she is fully aware of how people view her.
Yes.
The level of threat she possesses to people, and she's not afraid to use it. Other people, they fly under the radar, but so far that it doesn't matter. She is an active under the radar player. She recognizes that people aren't coming for her because again, she's one of the worst challenge performers in the history of the show, but also because of her availability, because she's somebody that they can work with, because her brutal honesty works in her favor in a way that maybe unlike any other survivor in the history of the show. And then by knowing that those are her strengths, knowing that people aren't ever particularly motivated to come after her this season, that allows her to do things, that allows her to move on and affect votes. And it's a much more exciting way to play under the radar. And even if she can't exert a lot of power, she's entertaining as hell.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing is, it's like we've talked throughout the season about like whether Sandra's like stated philosophy of anyone but me, like whether that's actually real. And I think that everyone believes that that's how she plays the game because that's how she talks about playing the game during the during the finale here, during the jury. So one of the things about Sandra is like, it's like I understand like what she says is her strategy, but I don't think she fully comprehends what kind of necessarily got her all the way here. She definitely knows a lot of it, but not. I don't think like it really sums up like how her game went.
Yeah, and I think she's just a really instinctual player, which
Yeah.
isn't actually that unusual. Most players play on some level of instinct.
She's like the Beth Harmon of Survivor.
Yeah,
For all you
I mean,
Queen's
they're just out there,
Gambit
right? It's all
fans.
instinct. They're just trying to survive. But like, she does things because she can feel it in the moment, and then she goes in that direction and all of that. So in some ways, maybe she doesn't know every reason why she succeeds or the key to it. Maybe also she's smart enough to not give the game away whenever she's asked about it.
There is that too.
I mean, this is
When
in an era she didn't know that that playing again would come in handy, but still, maybe in her own life she knows that the game is to be sold, not told. Emma?
Oh, I was just gonna say when I think it was actually Burton, last week is the first one who actually says Sandra plays an anyone but me game. So did anyone else when Sandra finally said it, this episode have that like I just felt like the like Simpsons classroom, like say the line, Sandra. Yay!
And yeah, I
Yeah,
loved her
just-
response to Rhino's question, where he's like, how did you ride coattails? It was just perfectly Sandra in that.
Yeah.
She throws that right back. She's not here for that bullshit. And she gives him a
that's like
strong
her-
answer, and
that's
she's
like one of her
allowed to
best
talk
answers.
back to them in ways that, Lil is, and many people in front of juries aren't. And frankly, just like the comparison of the two, when Lil starts referring to herself in the third person, this is what Lillian Morris needs. And it's like, shut up. Oh God, that's awful. You got talking. Sandra can always call herself Sandra, and I will not mind. It's just, this is what Sandra does. It's like, that's right. That is what Sandra.
Yeah. No. When she answered Rhino's question, and Rhino basically walked out of there like, "Oh yeah, no, good answer. Yeah, well done."
I especially loved that he keeps it vague, doesn't say like, ride anyone's coattails, and she's just like, I know you're talking about Rupert. Rupert's sitting there, and I made it all this way without him. He got it voted out pretty early in the merge, and it's just like, we do know he was talking about Rupert.
Right. And Rupert is there being like, yeah, good work, good answer, Sandra.
Like, it's not like she had to work hard for Rupert's vote anyway, but it also is like kind of highlights him too and gives him a little shine, even while saying he got out early and I didn't need him. It's also like, clearly he is the big player of which you speak.
Well, I mean, and giving him shine, I think, helps with the jury, who mostly really liked Rupert. It's, I mean,
I wonder if that was still true by that point.
That's a fair point. They did just spend a lot of time Ponderosa.
Ponderosa,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it's just the great thing about Sandra, and you see it, right here, and you'll see it whenever she comes back, is she is one of the few survivors that just gets to always tell anyone and everyone what she feels and what she's thinking. In the game of deception, in the game of you can't say that, you always have to be careful what you're saying in front of people lest you get voted out. She'll just say it, and it's fucking great. I love it. And and to the point where it's like, yes, you shouldn't have said she voted all you out, but maybe at that moment she's feeling the level of resentment that they all have for Lil, because we don't know what order they come in, but prior to Tawana, a lot of the questions were the traditional, my question for you, Lil, is how dare you? So maybe in that sense, being like, one more time, it was her. It was all anybody else. Yeah, that's a sign of weakness. But for Sandra, it's just like, yeah, Sandra, you're right. You cussed us out and we love it. And she voted people out. Because I'll further this.
It was very good. Like that Lil's only thing she could come up with for Sandra was like, oh, she's disrespected people. It's Emma. I was like, this jury. It's funny, I don't think of this as being a particularly young season of young jury, but that jury was too young to give a fuck about cursing.
That's true.
Well, I think either in that moment or when Sandra brings it up later, like John is like, like Burton, like, yeah, she totally did. Wasn't that great? Because John is fucking wasted.
Oh, yeah.
He is so drunk in this final tribal council. Bump this up discussion now. Let's talk about John and how much he sucks. It was weird that he got the hammer position, that he got to be the final juror to speak. I almost wonder if it's like we need to extend it so the motherfucker will be dry enough to talk. And like before the jury gets up to do their questioning, like Probst is very pointed in his instructions that like, this is your only chance, so don't screw it up. That was a message for an audience of one.
Yes.
Jeff hates Jonny Fairplay so much. And
I honestly can't believe they invited him back when they did, because he obviously hates him so much. So I guess Jeff did not have his the same level.
He objected. He did not want Fairplay to be back. He was overruled on that one. He was on the record
correct
about that.
Yeah,
Jeff is probably the one who wouldn't let him have his medication.
Well, I mean,
after getting his
what
ass
was
beat
his
by
medication, really?
Yeah.
But in terms of if the story that we have heard is true, and that he's on pain meds after getting his ass beat by Danny Bonaducci.
I believe that's the story Fairplay has put it out there. I think
no, that's who I
Penner
meant by...
has suggested that those medications were maybe a little less prescription based.
Right. Either way, it worked out for us.
He's wasted in there and annoying Jeff. And I actually said out loud there, man, Jeff hates him. And then my son was like, why does he hate John? I'm like, why do you hate John? Like, everybody hates John. Why wouldn't you hate John? We get just final doses of John in this, just reminding us throughout how much he sucks. And it's the great Lillian shutting him down, but like even like the fucking like parade of losers segment, they have to show him being like, and she had a slamming bod. Like, fuck you, dude.
He was even more misogynistic this episode than he had been like throughout the season, which is really saying something. It's a high bar to clear.
There was an episode surrounding the whole theme of look at this chauvinistic asshole and how they're going to get their ass beat, and he turned it up. And yeah, I mean, our friend Charcules has been mentioning this in comments, and honestly, it just feels like cheap heat. He's just like doing one last thing to try and get over as a villain. All right, every time I talk about the girls now, I'm going to talk about how inferior women are to men. Right. And I'm not saying he doesn't believe that. I'm not saying he's not a misogynist, but it just felt like him trying to make us upset. And at that point, I'm like, whatever, troll, just lose.
Right. But then like his troll stuff, like, was just falling so much flatter. Like it had been falling flat for a while. It was falling so much flatter this episode. And then it extended to the reunion where he's like trying his stuff, and you see that like without the show, like basically trying to like dress it up. Oh, he is so bad at this stuff. And I joked when watching this episode that like Rupert's roar is a better wrestling gimmick than John will ever have, and that has to eat him alive.
He's Duggan right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, John, it was awful. And when he, so Lil wins the final immunity, and my 11-year-old is like, well, he's gonna vote out Sandra. Like you have to. It's the move, or she's going to. Sorry, vote out Sandra because you have to go in the end against Fairplay. And then it votes out John. Oh, big cheers, jumping out of the couch. That one, Jonny Fairplay is voted out, but two, he was rooting pretty hard for Sandra at that point.
Yeah.
Any other reasons why John sucks, or just want to reiterate your own thoughts, Emma?
Yeah,
I love talking about why John sucks. We can always talk about why John sucks.
There's like
any
the
podcast,
electoral...
any season.
No, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else there really is to be said. He's terrible. You can tell, like, unless Probst was making it up wholeheartedly, Jonny Fairplay was clearly spreading rumors about him and Nicole, which is pretty gross. Also, this isn't Fairplay, but speaking of misogyny and the parade of losers or whatever it's actually called, what was it like? All they had to say there was like, oh, she was just as something as she was cute, and then like they showed the shower footage again, and
just
like,
they couldn't resist. They got to show that shower footage again.
Like, why? And also don't.
Yeah, I mean, number one, it's shitty by the show.
Yeah.
And there. Two, maybe it's like this is literally all we got out of her. So
Short winning challenger. She won 3 of them.
Yeah, we're getting that thing put around her. Yeah.
Look at her right liaison.
But that would respect her as a human, and we can't have that.
Yeah. Terrible. But yeah, no, Fairplay sucks. Has been predicted. Actually, it did call that Lil would probably vote him out just because he was like, she's gonna let she's like, she shouldn't, but she's gonna let the emotion get the better of her, and this is great. So, like, it's funny. There was that bit of like, I think when you start to really get invested and you kind of can't bear to have the good scenario in your head, that early on he's like, oh God, it's gonna be like they're gonna vote out Sandra at 4. Like, I think just in like that makes sense. Or like, oh man, it's Lil. Or I think even before he's like, wait, does Lil win against either of them? Which I think is sort of like in watching Kagayan, I remember briefly thinking like, wait, is Wu gonna win? Because you just can't conceive of the like.
Yeah,
how would Tony get to the end?
Yeah, and then luckily it shifted around again, where like as soon as Fairplay's like, all right, Sandra wins, we got this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember when I was watching it the first time, I was very concerned that Lil was going to win. For one, I had been rooting for Sandra. She's interesting, and also it was, a way of continuing cheering for Rupert, which again was also what was happening with my son. But yeah, it's like, how does she not? Like, how do you not make this decision? Well, let's get into that. Do we believe that Lil cost herself the win by choosing Sandra over John? And at the reunion, Jeff does the thing where he asks the jurors, it's always dubious of how much we can value what people are saying now versus what they were saying.
Also, the weirdest thing on that is that Tijuana apparently votes for Lil over Sandra, but
not over John.
Lil.
Right. Yeah. So just to say, the three.
I mean, I guess she's really strategy focused.
Right. Maybe. Well, the four that said they were going to vote for the four that said they would vote for Lil are Rupert, Krista, Sandra, and Darrah. Now, I think there is no question that three of those would vote for Lil over John. Rupert, Krista, Sandra, definitely. You think Sandra might?
No. So Sandra, Rupert definitely would vote for not John, whoever that person may be.
Right.
Krista almost seemed like at times that she might have been, impressed by John or something, like she does not like him, but I could see a scenario where final tribal council John is able to get Krista's vote. And then maybe that's because at the reunion she's all like, well, John did the thing and good for him. Now at a final tribal council in which she said she would not vote for him, so there's that. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
But what I was going to say was, so then to me, the one that was in question was Darrah, who has spent more time around the two of them than almost anyone else on the jury, and actually seemed to admire the moves Lil made. Not to the extent she was going to vote for her over Sandra, but I think that she actually said Lil played the game, or and one thing she was saying was you're trying to say that you didn't play the game, but you did. And here's the other thing that we're not considering. John pisses people off all the fucking time. Yeah. He would go into tribal council and half the people would emerge hating him even more.
Yeah. There's a very good chance he talks himself out of votes by deciding that, now is the time for me to reveal my grand plan and how I was, maybe he even reveals the grandmother bullshit.
Oh my God. Could you imagine?
Which would be so bad.
I can imagine that.
Yes. To win.
And they're just like, fuck this guy. I don't care that you beat me or anything. There's no way I can leave this evening writing your goddamn name down. So I think yes, there's now I don't say it's a guarantee, because
it's not.
Also was not good at final tribal council, and it's very easy to understand her falling apart even more, because Sandra was a little supportive of her. John would not be. Now maybe that would bring the best out of her in the way that it did in the final challenge, right? But so I'm in some ways I can't put this up there with Colby or Wu, and that you took a guaranteed victory off the table. And maybe I also just don't rank it that high, is because I'm so fucking grateful that Lil did do this. Right?
Exactly.
Lil saving the season so many times.
Which brings us into our weekly discussion. Did Lil suck this week? And it's a tough one, because the decision saves the seasons. It's one of the best things that happened to the season, allowing Sandra to win. Frankly, helping change the perspective of what a champion in Survivor could be. And maybe she never returns if she's not the winner of this season. But and she won a challenge. She won the final challenge in pretty excellent fashion.
She sassed Fairplay.
Yeah, she sassed Fairplay. Those moments definitely did not suck.
Was able to pick up on the very difficult clue of Darrah refusing to agree not to vote her out, and voted Darrah out. Did she suck? I just think she sucks. I can't. It's so tough. When she's at the final tribal council and she's whining some more, it's you're not gonna whine your way to victory. Nobody wants to hear it anymore, Lil. But she made it. It was her decision.
I'm gonna say, you guys all said this last week. This is the week I'm gonna say I don't think she sucked, because I think the challenge honestly is enough, because she stands up for herself there. She picks Sandra, which is bad at the game, but good for everyone else. So, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few being her and her family. And then, that's good enough for me.
So this is what I'm going to say. She didn't suck at the portion of the finale that was on Island. I think the challenge, she picked up Darrah. She chose Sandra, which saved the season. All of those did not suck. She gets to the reunion. She is back into full Lil suck mode. Well, come on. She's denigrating, drinking, and carousing. I just take that personally. That is good stuff. you know, why you got to put that stuff down? You know, I know that John does it, but
Matt
like,
is just like Jonny Fairplay. You heard it here first.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. She did not suck this week. This is her great triumph. And frankly, it does like show her getting a bit more of a backbone, but it does not take much for Lil just to bug the hell out of me.
No,
And I gotta say, I don't think I was unique to that. I believe that was the experience of which the people she was playing with. That's why she was voted out once earlier before. And I think why she loses 6-1. I think everybody thought she was the likable, sympathetic story, but when they get together, like, man, I don't like her. It doesn't matter. I don't like her. A suitable replacement has been given.
Yes.
So she did not suck this week. But I'll say, I actually expected to watch this season being a little more sympathetic for Lil, because it is just so easy to view, like, just in retrospect, knowing, the way the show is, the way society is, that they were giving her a raw deal, that, and frankly, we discussed how they give her a raw deal, and that, judging her and how she should behave because of the uniform she was forced to wear. But I watched it again, and she sucked more than I even remember. It's just such a psychically draining presence.
Yes.
That I'm just watching TV. I couldn't imagine being there.
No.
Self-pity, I think, is probably one of my least favorite attributes in a human, and possibly my absolute least favorite attribute in a television show contestant.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the only one that would be up there for me with another human is hypocrisy. Like, that's one.
Yeah, I was gonna say sanctimony. That's why, like, I've just never fucked with Coach. I know people are always like, "Oh, Tocantins Coach is the best." He just all the way. Like, I know there's like good TV, but he just bugs me. The way he acts about Sierra just fucking bugs me. I just can't with that behavior.
Can I bring back an old discussion since we're on the topic of did someone suck this week?
Maybe.
We saw Austin again. Did he suck this week?
No, you know what?
He did really well.
Damn straight he did not suck this week.
He stood up for his convictions, and I stand by. I know we talked about this, but I stand by, like, that was less of a quit and more of a falling on his sword. Someone had to go. He wasn't feeling it. He knew these people cared about it. Like, he stayed before when he wanted to quit because his tribe needed him, and then it was the point where it would cost someone on his tribe to get to the merge. He's like, you know what, I don't have it, vote me out.
But
I get that because he's the first, they make such a big deal out of it. But if that had happened 10 seasons later, it's not that big of a deal.
Right. And the thing is, the Austin at the reunion is like, oh, this is why they cast Austin. Like, he's pretty engaging there, and
and it's entirely possible we didn't get a lot of that because they were framing his most negative moments in order to, damn him when he quits. Because, the flip side is he saved one of his tribe mates, but that tribe mate was Darrah. So, maybe it would have just been better to get a little bit more Austin, because goddamn,
brutal.
She's such a fucking zero. Like Lillian was actively like bothering me throughout. Darrah is just the black hole, like where you only see the negative space around her. Like,
well, if only he had
a major state of undress. Just brings nothing to television. Is it really that interesting that she's a mortician? I don't know that it is. In fact, she talks at the reunion about pursuing modeling. It's like, you're cute. You're not that cute.
That was so awkward.
No, I thought she said dental hygienist or whatever. Or like,
she's starting to study for that,
Right, yeah. And Jeff was like, wait, what?
That was so awkward because I feel like Jeff shouldn't ask those kind of questions if he doesn't have a positive answer. Like, asking like, hey, you mentioned, your loved ones that your dream job was a model. Has that gone well for you? It's like, no. I live in Mississippi and I'm like 5'5". I don't know how tall she is. I just guess
she seems like petite.
Yeah, like
I would actually say she's shorter than 5'5", but
yeah. That's my height.
As somebody who's seen a lot of dating profiles, he knows. Although I guess the rules aren't the same in that,
No.
Whereas no man would ever write 5'5". It's 6 feet or maybe 5'11".
6 feet means 5'7".
Bleak. But yeah, like I just thought like that was just like I don't know. I know they just had very little to ask her, but that just seemed so
I mean,
awkward.
It
that's a
definitely
lesson.
seemed like Jeff had like tried to clear a question, forgot to get an answer, and then just asked it, and she was like, "Nope," and he's like, "Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't know anything about your life, you boring person."
That's the lesson, though. So many people in the modern era complain that, like, oh, this person didn't get talked to. This person didn't get talked to. Once it started to happen, it was like that. It was like the Oscars, and people just keep talking about the people who were left out of the in memoriam section, right? Is people will keep track of who does not get talked to in a reunion.
Yep.
And the thing is, there should be more people. More people should not be talked to. In fact, it's okay if it's all, because reunions are awful, and this one was no exception. They are death, and obviously much worse on a rewatch. But people like that pine for the old days when everybody was talked to and all this. It's like, it's so boring. I hate them. And I don't even have a question. I'm gonna say that and then let you guys talk about reunions.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of like left it on and was on my phone for a little bit, but my husband didn't even stick through, and like this was his first time. He's like, I don't care what they're up to, and left and played video games.
Yeah, we tried to watch a bit with the boys because it's like, well, you can see Fairplay's grandma, and then Chris
Right.
went, oh, I want to see that, and then like it takes
Yeah,
too
he did
long.
see
He's like,
that
I don't want to see this anymore. It's like, you're absolutely right, nor do I. I will continue to watch it because I'm going to discuss on the podcast. I forced Matt to watch it because I told him we were going to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing good about it. That's not the natural. These aren't public speakers for the most part.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, maybe you get somebody who has that as profession. But what they were doing is being on television, interacting, and then skilled editors put together a story out of it.
Well,
you don't
and
get
that's
that in
why
a live environment in front of thousands of people in an audience. Is it thousands, Emma?
I have no concept of numbers.
There you go. A lot of people
There you go.
in an audience, and then live people watching on TV, and they suck at it. Sorry, Matt.
What I was going to say is one of the, you probably noticed if you watch this reunion that Jeff kept going to Savage for some reason, and there's probably two reasons for that. One, he's
hot.
Well, I was going to say
I feel like it's tie. He should have gone no tie, open collar.
It was an ugly tie too, but still a DILF.
No.
Okay. But the main reason he kept going to him is because he's a lawyer and lawyers generally have experience talking extemporaneously in situations kind of like that. Lawyers can talk. So you can throw a question to them and they'll be able to be coherent. Yes, I am shining my own shoes here. Or whatever this saying is.
Is that an expression?
Saying?
Way to go, Mr. Great Life Talking
Great
Man.
example of lawyers talking
Damn it. So the one part of the reunion because Andy made me watch it, the one part of the reunion that I liked is Jeff goes to talk to John's grandmother, and he's like, we were really concerned, and we called to see what had happened and to see if we could do anything, and you picked up the damn phone. It's the one part of the reunion. Great. I actually laughed pretty hard at it. So...
But also, if you wonder why they started filling these shows up with terrible segments of Little Girls with Rice, we get a little girl in the audience segment in this very one, which none of them are like good additions. It's like, again, talk to Cochran, talk to Boston Rob or whatever, but it's because they've been through so many of these where it's like, oh God, I tried to talk to Sean in a live environment and it was fucking death. So like they just keep trying to cut out the live environment stuff. And it's still true to this day where they put some of it like interstitially throughout the finale, which I think is more effective, but you still see with very few exceptions, they're scared shitless when they're like out there answering a question live in front of the big lights. This is just not anybody's natural environment. And Probst has been doing this now for 40 seasons. He's still not very good at it because he's not single take live talking person.
He also
and they've now edited down. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, he actually hasn't, and he hasn't been doing it for 7 seasons because the first few they had like Bryant Gumbel and Rosie O'Donnell at least through season 4.
I think season 3 or 4 was the first time he did it.
4, I know that he didn't 4 because people always talk about that was like in Central Park with Rosie O'Donnell and she gave them all a car and it was like weird. But Thailand, who the fuck knows? I don't.
2 and 3 definitely was Bryant Gumbel. I believe maybe 1 as well. Maybe
Yeah,
not.
so I think 4 is Rosie, and then,
Okay, and then they
after
go to
that,
Jeff. Okay.
who knows?
I think it's Jeff. I think it's Jeff from
Yeah, I
there
think it's
on
Jeff
out.
after that.
But yeah, it's like,
Um,
so like the last reunion show we got for season 40, where it was just here's the 3 people on Zoom, and then give Tony maybe a minute and move on. All that needed was Tony 1 more minute, and it would have been the perfect reunion. Stop trying to save the reunion show, people.
Right.
It's bad, and it's always been bad.
Yeah, I mean, and the
can
fact
say
is,
that because
even,
I've seen 3 seasons now. From the
well,
past.
even in season 39, like they now just are like, yeah, finale's gonna run long into the reunion. The reunion's gonna be a half hour, and that's a half hour of network time, which is less than that. So like the reunion now is short, and frankly, it is the right thing to do.
And I'll say in the past, there was at least a utility to it. You saw these people, you haven't seen them in a while, like getting to see them again, maybe little check-ins, like you've grown some attachment to them. In the modern era, there is zero utility. You will not be able to escape these people unless they want it. You know, they will, you know, they've been tweeting throughout, and they'll tweet some more, and you can get cameos from them, and they'll do 2 hours, 3 hours on, you know, any podcast that asks them. The Hearts of Reunion, they'll be on Reddit. They'll be like, you'll get the answers, and you'll get them so much better than, I've got 10 seconds, you in the back, give me something. It's bad. It's a bad television show. I hate it, and I'm still going to force you to watch the next one if we ever do a rewatch.
Next time I'm just going to say I watched it and not watch it.
I'm going to ask a specific question. What
Then
happened?
fine, I'll just own to not watching it.
We're supposed to watch those. The biggest utility that the reunions always had for me no longer applies, because when I was a child, we would, you know, watch the finale, but 8 to 11, that is late for a preteen or a tween, and so my mom would make me, I could watch and see the winner be read, and then we taped the reunion. I had to go to bed, and then we got to watch the reunion after school. And it was like so exciting. And now, I mean, if I was, well, I guess since the pandemic, it wouldn't really matter. But if I was 11 during season 40, then I'm either stuck and somehow have to go to school in the height of its popularity. Because that was the thing too, like spoilers at elementary, middle school were a real issue there.
Yeah, whereas
especially for Africa, because that was a really big deal. But yeah, so that was the best thing. Also, you mentioned asking me, how many people are in the theater, but I truly have no concept of how many people are in a crowd. But I will admit, like, that was sort of a weird pandemic thing of when they showed, I was like, oh, but I was just like, I felt this like pang of like,
remember when you could be around people?
And it looked the same. Like, I think that's really just been like, and that, for a while they were switching off between LA and New York, but that was LA, and that was the studio, that I've been to. And I just miss it so much. And it could have had season 40. And it's actually been a while since I've been able to go to the actual reunion and not just the after party, but I still robbed of that for season 40. I could have met you.
Yeah, you could have hung out with like Parvati and Rob and Amber and stuff.
I did at least get to talk to Parvati at like the RHAB thing, so that was good. So that's why. But it's like, you'll Denise. Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah, look, in comments, if somebody like, I need somebody to actually answer the question, what do you like about reunions? If you've been somebody who's complained about a reduced time, or like, what is it? And I'll try not, I'm criticizing now. I won't criticize in comments, because for me it feels like a misplaced sense of kitsch. Like, if you miss that, I hope you also miss the parade of losers. Like, there's not, like, it's not good. Frankly, like, a lot of stuff from the past was like a lot of like memories of the worst parts about it, like how like a lot of the women unfortunately had the makeup gun set to whore or whatever, like, because they just don't know how to do makeup for television.
I just want to state for the record, for people who don't know, he's making a Simpsons reference.
Yes. Thanks for
should have stated that for the record. Just should have left that there. I think. I think maybe some of the nostalgia for it is the fact that in the earlier seasons there wasn't RHAP, there wasn't social media, there wasn't this constant deluge of information about what these people had done after they got voted off. There wasn't Ponderosa videos. We didn't get to see these people afterwards.
There wasn't returnee seasons all the time.
Right.
How else do you find out if Eric lost his virginity?
Right.
Yeah.
So there was some utility to reunion shows that I just don't believe there is anymore.
Yeah, the only utility now is to give people something to complain about, which of course is everybody's favorite thing to do on the internet, and Survivor fans no exception. Because not only do they complain about the people that aren't there, but they also complain about the facile questions that their favorite got. It's like it's not going to be better. This is not the time for depth. There is no time. There wasn't time even then. When frankly, it feels like it's 2 hours long, even though they don't have much time.
Anytime they do try to tackle a deep subject in a reunion, it's like they're just trying to force people to agree to something that they're not going to reach agreement on in 5 seconds.
Yeah, Shireen and Worlds Apart or something. So kill the reunion show. More time for the finale. All right, final thoughts on the season. So we've now watched a season that I think we've all ranked pretty highly going in. Did you still enjoy it watching it this way? Why or why not, Emma?
It's fun. I think rewatches though are better watching it in chunks and more of a binge. I think the week by week is a little tough when you know what's happening.
Matt?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, it's still a very good season. Don't get me wrong. It's still in my upper tier just because it has really good personalities. It doesn't have a pagonging. The post-merge is actually pretty, like a seesaw. It's back and forth. There's a lot that happens. The Outcast twist is like one of those great "fuck you," but in a way that like I now kind of enjoy.
I think it brings so much to the season. I think it's why we don't have a pagonging.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so like I'm still really high on this season, but I agree with Emma that rewatching it, it's better as a chunk.
Yeah, I think what's tough is talking about it every week, because like the nice part about stretching it out week to is that you only have to fit 42 minutes into your schedule, which still seemed a little difficult for some people, but it's a difficult time right now.
And that's a great point, because one of the things I've realized about kind of Survivor ever since we started doing the podcast is that the more we talk about a season, sometimes the less I like it.
Yeah, what's interesting about this is that it does flip-flop, so there's a lot of back and forth exciting. None of it seems to be due to like a plan of a skilled survivor at all. No. Like we don't see a lot of fantastic gameplay in any part. Like there's a few moves like, oh yeah, they turned that around, but usually it's because somebody did something idiotic to open themselves up, and thank God that's they were punished for it. That does not always happen. Like as somebody who recently rewatched Africa, I can tell you it's not. But yeah, it's like this isn't really a season for like masterful gameplay. But I still find it, remember it fondly. I still enjoy it now, even though my primary reason for enjoying it the first time was that I really like this new Rupert guy, and I was done with Rupert before the show was this time around.
What was surprising to me? So was my husband. He caught on to that real quick. I don't like. To the point that he didn't even remember, like he did not believe me when I said that Rupert was one of his favorites early on. Because I was like, oh well, who else? Did you like? He's like, well, I like Sandra. I was like, you can have favorites who aren't the winner. Like there are other people you might enjoy. And I was like, oh, what about like your boy Rupert? And he's like, he's not my boy. I was like, you said he was your favorite. It's like, well, he's too obvious a threat to win. I was like, but you can still like him. And he's like, And I was like, oh, just you wait. Actually, I'm not sure. No, I was going to say I'm not sure which of his future seasons I'd make him watch, but it's probably really only All Stars that would need to be skipped. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, so I still enjoy it. I haven't gone and looked to see if it changes at all my rankings, but this by and large was an enjoyable experience reliving this season. I think it still, it still works, even though I'm not even sure why, because Lil bothered me throughout. She's there the whole time. I dislike Jonny Fairplay on a great level. I'm generally a gameplay person. There's not a lot of gameplay to admire. Certainly some, I like the way Sandra is able to, excel at this game. Although she made just horrible mistakes at some point. I don't like Rupert as much, but I don't know. I think that there's also some of the packaging of the season really worked. The pirate
theme, hell yeah.
Yeah, it just gave it a way to really cling together and let them do some new stuff. And sometimes that led to weird new stuff, like, the jury competing against them. But some of it's just like, that challenge was a little bit more interesting. Actually, I found, and maybe it's because I'm watching with kids, I'm more interested in challenges on a rewatch than I am the first way around. Probably because it's the detail I remember the least.
Yeah.
Like, I often remember like who
sense.
won, but I don't really remember how it functioned.
They have some interesting challenges, and like I think now too, a lot of the challenges we get in modern seasons are pretty much the same. And these were a lot we really haven't seen. So
not a lot
many
of
puzzles
this season.
Nary an obstacle course to be found.
I guess with the gates, but that's not quite
the combo one. But that's that's something they used to do a lot too. Is sort of bits and pieces of old seasons.
So absolutely, anybody else that had done this rewatch with us, let us know how it plays to you now than it did then. And actually, let's talk about this now. We don't know what we're gonna do next, if anything, other than wait for another season of Survivor. Let us know if this was an enjoyable thing for you, both watching an old season and also, the podcast. If there's anything that you have suggestions about, what we could do differently, what you would be interested in seeing again. We've kind of alluded to this. If we were to podcast another season on a rewatch, we are both not going to do the spoiler section, and we will clump it up a bit more because it's tough sometimes.
Probably more like 2 episodes a week, unless there's one really big episode in there.
My kids enjoyed the season in a way that I don't think they enjoyed Africa as much, even though
That's good.
One of them really liked the winner. They both celebrated the victory of Sandra, so that was good.
Awesome.
It's good. It's fun. I plan on continuing to rewatch old seasons because currently I pay $6 a month for the privilege of doing so.
I got my husband to agree to watch at least one more. So
I think I'm going to watch All Stars because I know I want to. I want to watch like everything but one episode, but
I think you could probably do that. I'm thinking
we're gonna do it. I don't actually mind the concept of telling my boys the consequences of
Good
not
point.
respecting people's boundaries. Actually, really quick on the note on All Stars, John fucking spoils the existence of All Stars at the reunion.
Yes. You noticed
I didn't even pay attention
over the crowd too. There's
and among the survivors themselves, right?
That there are people who know, and then obviously people who don't. And so that's something where
what did he say? I guess I wasn't.
It's like he's like talking about his dead grandma and how it worked out, and all this was about he's like, I don't know, maybe my grandpa will be dead for All Stars, and everyone's like,
oh, you're right.
We're not talking about that. Which had already filmed at that point. Like Rupert,
it was such a thing. I had to pause. I was like, okay, so next season is All Stars. It has already filmed. Jonny Fairplay, not on it. Rupert is on it. That's context. Continue.
It's like you're not being invited on. He eventually does. So the very next time they do more full. Really, not just 2 people.
The seasons I'm picking to be watched are in order to prepare for the season where he does come back.
Yeah. All right. Any other final thoughts on Pearl Islands?
Should we talk about Sandra's win? I know.
We're gonna do that in the spoiler section because there's something from a future season that I want to contextualize.
Fair enough.
So one last spoiler section, but before we get to that, the final updog of the year and probably ever. I don't plan on if we ever do another show. I've ran out of topics. So this week's updog is what's the best holiday gift you've ever received, and we'll start with Emma because
reasons. So most of my bigger gifts were usually for birthdays. I think probably because it's more spread out. My brother and I's birthdays are 6 months apart, so it's easy to, I think, for my parents to kind of spread out those expenses in a way that doesn't apply for Christmas, although my brother's birthday is not that far from Christmas. But so the biggest one the best one I could think of was when I got my bike in 7th grade. But the thing with that's a little tricky is that I picked it out. They were very there was no big thing. I went to the store, we really big, and then but they waited and had it in the garage and then brought it in the living room with a bow and stuff. So that was nice. But since that was something I picked out, I added sort of an alternate cute story, which is that when I was like little, you know, because that was like 7th grade, when I was probably like 5, 6, I wanted, you know, a stuffed animal. Kids always want stuffed animals. And I was a little weirdo and very specifically wanted a white cat with blue spots, which they recognize is not a thing that is sold in stores. And my brother, who would have been in his early teens at that point, got a white cat and colored blue spots on it. And then when, you know, with like magic marker, not like Sharpie, so when that eventually faded with time, his explanation was like, well, it's like deer, you know, where, you know, fawns are born with spots and they eventually lose them as they age.
That's science.
Yeah.
And it had a little like box thing in it that made it purr when he moved. It was a great cat.
I like to imagine Emma's bike story. She's receiving the bike, and it's like the Lexus car commercial, you know, with the giant bow on the bike instead of the car out front.
I mean, it was just in the living room. It had a bow, but not like those like car bows, just like, you know, those like kind of velvety red bows you get like at Target or something on the handlebars.
How about yourself, Matt?
So here's the problem. I have a December birthday, and like Emma, I was getting bigger gifts as a kid for my birthday, not for Hanukkah, which is actually kind of a fake holiday. You know, it's just kind of gotten commercialized because of its proximity to Christmas. So I would get smaller gifts for Hanukkah, but they'd be like books, maybe a video game. I legitimately do not remember a single like Hanukkah gift that like stands out above the rest. Whereas like,
what about like office Christmas parties or anything? Anything like great white elephant gifts? No, there's no such thing.
No, they all suck. I think once I got some booze. I think someone brought booze, and I was able to get that. And I was like, hell yeah!
And Emma was like, yeah, go ahead and steal it. You know.
Once at a white elephant, I got a Simpsons like trivia board game, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We got laundry detergent last year.
I mean, that's useful.
That's honestly, of the choices, I was like, no, take that one.
I mean, better than the coffee or wine packets that they tend to give us.
So I just legit don't remember a single like Hanukkah gift as being better. Like I probably got some video games that I played a lot, but I don't remember which ones. So yeah.
What's the best birthday that came around that time?
I know I got a TV once. That was pretty sweet.
That would have been my best birthday gift because it's my only hobby.
She loves that more than all of the things.
Yeah. TV definitely kind of stands out pretty high.
The story of me getting a TV actually is funny, but it wasn't the Updog, so I'm not going to tell it.
We'll have to wait for another season. For me, it was I was about 12 years old, like 1989, I believe. I looked this up.
I wasn't born yet.
Yeah, we didn't miss you. Because you missed this, and that was the year.
Well, it's gonna be like, did you apologize to
the Nintendo Entertainment System? I got the NES, right? And it had already been out for a few years at this point, so I had wanted it so badly. And I'll say, I never got a video game system like the year it came out. But like, yeah, frankly, just looking up now, I was shocked to learn that I had to wait 3 years for this thing. And so I'd been buzzing, waiting. Frankly, I didn't think my parents could afford it, but these things dropped significantly year over year. And my mom would hide the presents not very well in her closet. Yeah, she's busy, man. She's having to work many hours and all that. So I took it through and I fucking saw the box, and it was like I had to wait so long, and it was like the most anticipated exciting thing ever. And I finally got it, and I swear, like I've never been able, the joy of receiving that gift has never been duplicated. I've got I probably got the Super Nintendo for Christmas one year, PlayStation 2. The year we got a Wii was kind of fun because we played Rock Band and stuff, but nothing it crystallizes the same as the year that I got a Super Nintendo. It came with like Super Mario Bros. Original and like an RPG game called Dragon Warrior, which I had put on my list to the potential if I ever got a Nintendo, only because it was advertised in the back of comic books, which I've read some of those comic books to my son recently. I get the game, and I'd never played an RPG before, and I'm like, what the fuck is this boring shit? All it is reading. You know how I feel about that.
Andy can't read.
The fighting is literally choosing to, strike or, exit.
Mhm.
You don't even do it. Turns out I ended up, I had so little content from this dream machine. If I wasn't out there renting a game, you went to stores back in the day and you were renting.
Rented games.
The best was doing it over New Year's week because that was one extra day because they were closed. But yeah, every other sense of joy and excitement from a Christmas gift is but a pale reflection of that Christmas in 1989. And thinking about this has made me realize I don't know if I've ever given my kids that feeling. They always get things that they want, but that, oh my God, holy shit, is this real? Am I really getting it? I don't know if they got that. And it's because all those assholes kept the PS5 out of our. No,
we never got new consoles either, to the point that I grew up playing the NES, which, as we established, came out before I was born.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think now that you mention it, probably my best birthday gift was the N64. So,
may I briefly share the Christmas gift I didn't get?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you not get a pony?
Oh, I didn't ask for a pony.
She's not
we were a petless household. So what I did ask for the real one in terms of if you think of the movie like the Santa Claus and how the Judge Reinhold stops believing in Santa because he doesn't get a penny whistle or whatever. Mine was I really wanted a sticker maker. But the best thing, just to balance out the brother doing a nice thing, is I really wanted I was really into mysteries and shit, and I put on my Christmas list a secret room or passage. Which obviously is not going to happen.
I can't believe they didn't get that for you.
But my brother put on his Christmas list for Emily to not get a secret room.
So he gets what he wanted.
Guess who got their fucking wish?
You knew he was the favorite.
Incredible.
Bullshit, which is funny because I'm definitely the favorite, but yeah, brutal, devastating.
So once again, last time in comments, feel free to share. One little parenting tip for people that might not yet be parents. If you're already parents, I'm sure you're doing your own thing and you don't need it. Do not give the big gift from Santa Claus. Two reasons for that. One, that credit should be yours. Me feeling like my parents had finally given me this amazing thing, and that it was, I knew it was not easy for them to do so. Parents should get that credit. Two, it's a great way of making all your kids' friends feel like shit. That they got the $500 toy, which is now what game systems are. They were not that back then. And their friend gets a $40 or whatever their parents could afford. Don't make the magical gift giving man into the choice of who gets the gift, the awesome things. Awesome things come from you. Santa is nice little things to have.
Good advice.
Any other thoughts, Matt? How do you feel about this Santa Claus stuff?
No, that's honestly good advice that I never would have thought of. So,
nor did you have reason to.
I've heard that before, but I do think it's good advice. I don't really, as I said, I don't recall any the bike was obviously from my parents since I picked it out. So, and they're big gifts. I don't think we're generally. I might have gotten rollerblades from Santa, but even then, I think it was 10 or 11. So it's heavy air quotes on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably another reason why the NES didn't come from Santa. I was 12 years old.
Right, you were 12. Yeah.
I mean, my mom, I think, still writes tags from Santa to gifts for us. Yeah. Because she's an incredibly sweet woman. Don't know how I turned out this way. But yeah, by then, if I hadn't given up the goat, I at least, was only playing along for fear that the gifts would go away one day. And frankly, realizing that not only for me, but I had to hold that for my older sister as well. But as it turns out, no. Those the same amount of gifts, just the tags from the same amount of people. All right. That's all we got for the non-spoilery section of this podcast. So obviously there's nothing left for this season to spoil. It's all over. If you hadn't watched it all by now, it would be weird that you're still listening and worried about spoilers. But we are going to talk about a future season and the result of that future season. So if you are just not at all future seasons, then Leave now. Spoilers. Now it's time to talk about Sandra's win.
Right.
Because it just makes sense to both how it compares to all season. With the standard disclaimer that we do not rank wins on this show because they're all unique, but we do tend to categorize at least, better, worse, okay, whatever. But also, this isn't her. This is what one of two for her. How does it compare to her other win? It's the discussions we want to have. Matt, first question: how did you feel about her win in comparison to all
wins?
Like where would you put Sandra's win? Was it a very impressive win? Was it?
I mean, it's
lower
probably
tier win?
for me. It's probably like mid-tier. Like Sandra is a very entertaining player, but like I don't know if the win is impressive. There are certainly moments that she has that are very impressive. I think getting Lil to take her to the end is like very impressive. Flipping the game on Burton and John. She definitely has good moments, and she is more aware of herself in this season than I remembered her being, in a lot of ways. But she makes huge mistakes, and she very rarely has it's not, yeah. So I'd say like mid-tier win. She's not a winner where I'm like, I cannot believe they won, which is what I consider the low. But she's not one of the wins that I cite as like one of the best wins.
Yeah, I think what it helps is that there was not going to be a great winner of the season the way things were going. Right, anybody that was in the finale, frankly, she was going to be the most impressive of the group, and I mean that's probably true of anybody post Rupert. Really, I guess if Burton had not screwed up and then was able to win, because he screwed up multiple times on the way out the door, right? Then maybe, but he was also fucking voted out, right? So. This was a season of moving around so that an ultra impressive one, which also might have been why it's entertaining. A lot of the most impressive dominant wins haven't led to an entertaining seasons. Emma, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not very interesting, but I pretty much agree. I think it's not super splashy. There's not even a ton of amazing social gameplay, especially back then. You only need 4 votes to win.
Yes.
2 of those were just her friends. It's just not. Yeah. Obviously, making friends is a valuable thing and something we don't really see
But in that respect, one of her great flaws this season was that she was make 2. And that they became such an easy target because there was the 3 of them and it was obvious. But as you say, that's half the votes you need to win at this stage of Survivor.
Yeah, it's really bizarre seeing only 7 people in there. But yeah, I think it's fine. But like Matt said, it's not like some of the lower tier wins we've seen or anything either.
Yeah,
I mean, this isn't
not a bad winner.
Right. Just from the season before this, Jenna Maraska won. That's a bad win. That is,
and never once tried to quit.
Yes.
Right.
Cleared that bar.
Sandra, much better than that. Much, much, much better. So
so I'd say it's not a bad win. It's not a great win.
Great.
And good. It's good. I was absolutely happy it happened.
Yeah.
Right. Now, comparing it to her heroes versus villains win, which is why we're in the spoilers section here, I think the heroes versus villains win is better.
I think it's much better.
Because here's the thing about it. Better competition.
Absolutely.
But also, she is sounding the alarm about what's going to happen. She is fully aware of the course the game is. She tries to change it, and just no one's taking her up on it. And she's like, okay, fuck you then. I'm going to ride this out, and then I'll go to the end, and people will like me because I've been playing this game to try to help them, and they didn't listen to me. She was the Chicken Little for them. And I mean,
of course, her detractors will use that against her, right? That what Sandra's great success was that failing to get people on her side. Yeah. But what it is it shows that one, she knows what's going on. She sees the path. She is not the Sandra of the season, but the Cassandra of the season. That was weak, and I'm sorry. It came to my head.
No, you know what? I appreciate the literary reference.
Yeah,
Cassandra didn't get any votes at the end.
There we go. Um,
Matt doesn't even remember there was a Cassandra.
but yeah, so in that, but also it's like, yeah, she's active. She's not just, and she's not making mistakes at all throughout Heroes
Right.
versus Villains. And frankly, being the person to oppose Russell, and not just behind the scenes to failed moves, but also right in front of his face showed a level of control that none of them had. She succeeded where other people couldn't, not just in getting to the end, but frankly, like even a Danielle gets cussed out and voted out by Russell for even daring to slightly oppose him.
Yeah.
Parvati, has her legs taken out from her in that moment as well. Whereas Sandra, the whole time, can just be still like, "Screw you, Russell. There's nothing you're gonna do about it." And then it turned out she was right.
But I also think it's just such a great example of why Sandra's good at the game, that she can be throwing out a plan to do one thing, and then when she doesn't get that plan, she's like, okay, then I'm going to look out for myself, and I'm going to still get far in this game. I don't need you to help me get to the end. I just needed you to like do a different plan. Like it's not necessarily a better plan; it's just a different one. And then
one she would have enjoyed more, but it's like, okay, that's fine. I'm still here. And that is one of her great strengths in the early portion of Sandra's career, is that she has a flexibility. She will try things, but if that's not going her way, it's fine. She'll move on to the next. Whereas many other survivors, if they need to set up things a certain way for them to be successful. Emma?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a little bit to the argument that, not being able to get anybody to listen to you isn't like an ideal survivor quality, but she certainly makes it work out for her. And there is certainly no denying that Parvati is a better player than Lil. So definitely goes up against better competition. And some of it is the advantage of Russell clearly not knowing who she is, but the getting him to think, the famous, I don't know about that, like to make him have no clue that she has such a good chance to to go to the end, and putting Rupert on the jury, who's someone who's going to champion her.
But even we're talking about like the what she's trying to do post merge in Heroes versus Villains, but even pre merge, she goes from being like in the tight control of the controlling alliance in her tribe, and when that gets cut out from under her, she manages to not be the next person voted out. Like she
at a time when her challenge liability should be a group liability.
100%. So not only should she be a challenge liability there, but she was like right in on like the alliance that just lost those votes. She should have gone like very soon after, and the fact she didn't speaks very well to her. So
whereas by the time that things turn on her, it's also the time when you maybe wouldn't want to target a Sandra anyway.
Exactly.
Any other thoughts about Sandra's win, how it reacts? So yeah, it was a pleasing win. I was excited about it, but it's not as good as her other win, and it's not a top tier win.
No.
All right,
that's it.
That's all we got. Anything else?
Nah.
Let's hit the music.
Well, let us know in the comment section what you want next, and we'll consider it.
Yes, no promises.
No promises.
And we're taking like at least a month off anyway.
Oh yeah, this is the traditional break. Like do not expect us to even consider doing anything until you start to see an actual season of Survivor. Were there one? Like basically, you should have a new president before we even consider doing anything.
Right.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind that none of us were planning on doing this every week, and we basically did. So.
I think each of you missed 1 week, and that's it.
Yeah. So bear with us. Yeah.
All right.
But thanks anyone who watched. We are glad that you participated and stuff. So that's been nice.
And hopefully it was something that helped you get through this shit year.
The light at the end of the tunnel is in the distance.
All right, we've stretched out. Now I'm going to say goodbye. Music.
Yep, stay safe. Happy holidays.